Welcome to the conveyancing world, and what do we think consumers really think about conveyancing, or do they at all really? So, first of all, for those who don't know about HomeOwners Alliance, I expect many of you don't, but HomeOwners Alliance, we're a property advice website, and it's the first place that people go to, or people will find if they're trying to get some information about buying, selling, owning a home. We get lots of traffic on people like, what is exchange, what's the process, what's a first time buyer, and you can find lots of different, we're similar to Which or to Martin Lewis, lots of different services on our site. But our mission really has been to help people, empower people to make the right smart choices, or the right choices on every step of the homeowning journey. So to avoid the pitfalls that we sometimes see. We've been going for over 10 years, and since then, millions of people have visited our site. It's all through organic Google, it's all through our content, which we work very closely with trade associations, professional groups, to make sure that we are accurate. And do get in touch with us if you'd like to help us out. As part of this, we also, to raise awareness of issues about homeowning and those who aspire to own, is that we undertake research. We are in the 8th year of our annual homeowner survey. We took a couple of years off because of the pandemic, and we also raise awareness via our campaigns. So we've had a variety of different campaigns, from new build, leasehold, stamp duty, a lot of housing supply, affordability. Our current campaign that we're sort of, we're hoping to, we were hoping to get into the budget, is to abolish stamp duty for everyone buying a home to live in, not have a stamp duty holiday, because we know that was really hard for you, you conveyancers, really. So we will continue to do that, and we find that the media and journalists generally come to us as the voice of the homeowner. So we do try to put forward the consumer point of view. And we have a experience, because we can see consumers or homeowners or home buyers through the mortgage process, the conveyancing process, the survey process. But we're always here to learn and to help and support industry. So what's happening now in the market, which I'm sure you guys all know this, and you probably have heard this over and over again. We know that people are stressed. They're always stressed when you're buying and selling houses, and I think that's, a certain amount of stress is understandable, because we don't do it very often, and it's a huge financial financial impact, and it's your biggest asset. The process is absolutely mind-boggling and confusing. It's uncertain. We know, if you look at the conveyancing protocol, you can see how many pages that goes down to. And it's also getting more complicated with things like fraud, anti-money laundering checks. So I can see that, it's getting, things are getting longer, more difficult to do. Transactions fall through. You can put down deposits for other things, a car, and that won't fall through. But 1 in 3 home buying to selling transactions fall through, which is a high degree of uncertainty. And this costs money. This costs consumers money. So we did research a couple of years ago, on average 2.7K per consumer. So it's taking longer and longer, and the longer the transaction takes, the more chance of it falling through, because people's circumstances will change. And and then you compare that with other markets where we're quite used to the Amazon effect, where we're used to getting things delivered, on the day. And it's extraordinary that in the property buying and selling market is that we're taking a step back. And things can change, because other countries have cracked it, and there's stuff that we can do. And I'm sure that through technology and different things, that things, will get better. But let's talk about what the consumers think what conveyancing is about. So we're going to start with a quiz. So we asked 2,000 UK homeowners. We did a survey, and I'm assuming you guys are going to get 100% on this. So I'd like you to look at these statements and see and tick which ones you think are true and which are false. So what do conveyancers do? So do they transfer the ownership of property from the seller to the buyer? Protects the buyer from buying a property with a third-party mortgage? Checks the structure of the structure of the property is sound and safe? Ensures the property is not affected by neighbor disputes, flooding, drainage, blah, blah, blah. Acts on behalf of the client or the buyer, or the seller, and the mortgage lender, and registers the ownership at the land registry. So I'm expecting you guys will all get 100% on this. So what did we get? What are the answers, or whether they're correct? So as you can see, we've got, they're pretty much all correct, except that we know that you don't really check the actual physical structure of the property, that it is sound, and that's usually the job of the surveyor. So, but thinking about going forward is like, what do you think homeowners people think about it, or what do you think, like just general sort of the UK population? Do you think they would have gotten them all right? What level of awareness do we have there? So this is what we asked them. And we found that these are people we surveyed 2,000 UK adults. That's split into 1,300 homeowners and 531 renters. And we asked them questions. We started saying, well, have you ever heard of conveyancing? And of course, some people hadn't. But of the people who had heard of the word conveyancing, we put together those sets of questions. And we found that 14% had 0 correct answers. 8% had all 6 correct. So that was quite an interesting thing. And as I said, that you can see the full report through the handout section on this webinar, and also on the Conveyancing Week website. So we asked, so going back to the actual questions we're asking, saying the awareness, so how many people have ever heard of the word conveyancing? And only, it's understandable that, maybe not that many homeowners have learned the word conveyance. Is not something you learn about in school. It's not something people have family, are not even anywhere close to thinking of buying a property, or maybe will never be able to own their own home. But only 53% of homeowners felt they knew a little bit about conveyancing, which was up to 77% of actual homeowners, which is probably not a bad thing, because they have gone through the process. And actually, maybe you just need to know a little bit, as long as you've got somebody who's guiding your hand and going through it. And hopefully this is not too small for you guys, but looking at the actual results of the, how they answer the questions. And the first table is amongst homeowners, which we expect a higher level of awareness, of course, because they've gone through the process of conveyancing. And the second table is ones who've just heard of conveyancing. And I think the thing that jumps out to me is that actually, if the surveying side of it, that they really think that that conveyancers do look at the property itself and making sure the property is sound and safe. I know that, there's look at the certificates and that sort of thing. And the other thing that was also a bit surprising is I think not many really realize that the conveyancers, of course, act on behalf of themselves, of the buyer, the seller, but also on the mortgage lender. Oh, you can't hear anything. Okay. Can anyone else hear anything? I'm just, if somebody else could say. Okay, I think Gemma, sorry, but I think other people can hear. So I'm not sure what the problem is, but we are recording this. So if you can't hear, you can always look at it afterwards. So very, very sorry, Gemma here. So I'll carry on. So going on to the confusion over surveys. So, and it's even a bit more concerning that, 40% have heard of the word conveyancing. Of course, you might think, of course, it's everything to do with buying and selling a property. Maybe it will look at the structure, making sure everything is safe and sound. But actually, 38% who've gone through conveyancing also thought that as well. And maybe this is one of the reasons why we know that people do not take out many surveys when they're buying a property. It's difficult because it's an upfront cost that they might not recoup at all. And these are some of the verbatim comments we had when we said, what is conveyancing? And if you please know, a lot of the comments did talk about is the legal process of buying and selling and making sure that the searches are there and all that sort of stuff. But looking at some of what they're saying is like surveying property for potential problems, having a survey done on the house, checking that there's no structural damages, and that's something that's always a bit unclear for consumers. Particularly if they've got, you've got the valuation survey, which is we know is very, very different from an actual survey. So we know that's for the lender to make sure that they're happy and confident to lend on that property. So that is something that when you speak to, your clients, it's something you might want to sort of communicate a little bit better. And also I'd probably put down the challenge to the RICS and the surveying industry that they probably need to do more to communicate and raise awareness, and the same with the likes of ourselves. So the next question we asked was, we asked about how do you choose a conveyancer? So how do you initially find, you're there, you need a conveyancer, and then also the reasons why you've chosen a certain conveyancer. And apologies if the numbers are looking a bit small to you, but and we also asked, we looked at this, how it's changed in the last 5 years compared to previously. So understandably, things like, on how to find a conveyancer, Google search is popped up. Conveyancing comparison sites, or sort of online reviews, that sort of thing is all really important. But what's also interesting, what's really popped up in the last year on finding conveyancers, recommendations are important. And of course, family, friends, contacts has always been and will continue to be an important sort of part of how to find a conveyancer. But particularly mortgage lenders and mortgage brokers' recommendations are, saying, maybe this conveyancer has jumped up quite a lot in the last 5 years, even more so compared to the estate agent recommendations, and new build recommendations as well. So it's quite interesting that recommendations are more important, but whether that's because they are being pushed more to accept these recommendations, or that people are busier and a bit lazier and will just take, it's an easy thing to do. We know that people are not really wanting to probably go and find a conveyancer. They just want to buy and sell their homes, really. But also looking to see that people also value specialists, so specialist conveyancers. So that's another area that maybe is something to think about. And then you look at other reasons why people chose a conveyancer over another: financial advisors, NHS trade union discounts, professionalism on initial contact. And also people have been told that actually to use the conveyancer, I assume there's Chinese walls, but with the same seller to speed up the transaction process. So it'd be interesting to see how things will evolve in the next 5 years. Will it become mostly online? Is it be through the brokers, the recommendations? How do people will find and choose their conveyancers? And of course, cost is always a factor really there. But good news. Overall consumer conveyancing satisfaction is pretty good. 72%. Pretty satisfied who use their conveyancer and ever had the conveyancer. 11% dissatisfied, 12% either or. So you're not doing too bad, and so don't always read what unfortunately the property press is or generally media is always focused on the negatives, but sometimes we've got to pat ourselves on the back. But of course there is room for improvement. And the likelihood to use again or recommend the conveyancer that you used previously, again, is not pretty good. And look at that, like it's going up from 74% that would definitely use again in the last 5 years, as opposed to 56% previously. And so that's something to think about, is that whether, unfortunately we don't buy and sell that often, but maybe there is a point about staying in touch with people, reminding them that you exist, if they do go and buy and sell again, and particularly if they're being pushed or being recommended by other property professionals, it might be worthwhile sort of keeping in touch with happy clients and for you to be able to for them to be able to find you again quite easily. So we then asked about conveyancing delays, and we said, so did you experience any delays when you're buying and selling your property? And you can see that it's doubled in the last 5 years, which is probably not surprising at all, compared to ones who bought more than 5 years ago. We've had an extraordinary property market over the last few years with the pandemic and the dash for gardens and the stamp duty holidays and all these market incentives. So delays have doubled. We can see that, and you can see that the stuff in the light green is usually where there's been big movement. So we can see that in the last 5 years, gazumping is on the increase, but also there's quite a big jump in when they're saying why were there delays, was in the mortgage and the lender delays. And there seems to be that it's quite so, whether we know that there's difficulties during the pandemic, but maybe there's something else going on. You would know probably a lot more than I would from the coal face. And also on leasehold, which also makes total sense given the cladding and all the things around leasehold reform, and so people are much more aware of leasehold, which is a good thing, which is definitely a good thing. So other delays: slow conveyancers, not speaking to each other, probate, inefficiency, mistakes, gazundering. I compared that to what I want to see. What does industry think? So, you can see that the consumers are very much putting the lens on the lenders and the different things. And but what industry says is that 42% of conveyancers say it's the chain instability. So I guess not enough certainty that people can pull out at any time. And that was also estate agents agreed with them. but also it's a chain uncertainty. And I do think that is a lot, that the fact that you can go right up to exchange and you can pull out, particularly as a seller, without incurring any costs at all. And I think there's a big problem there. And then also, we also know that a buyer can pull out because they might be weren't told the full story about the property and the things that would have really made a decision on whether they were going to put an offer in. The information comes too late in the process. So we then asked, what would improve the conveyancing experience amongst the 2,000, well, I guess it's about 1,300 homeowners. And again, in the light green, you can see this is where it's changed most in the last 5 years. So, of course, everyone thinks improvements can be made. We're in a world of continuous improvement. That's no bad thing. 38% felt that it could be a faster process, and that's gone up since in the last 5 years compared to the previous time. But also, I think that we are everything is speeding up in the world today. More frequent communications. People want more communication. They want to understand more. And I think that's, again, in every walk of life, that we have Google and AI to hand, ChatGPT, that we can do our own search, our own research, we can find our own answers. The clear explanation of legal processes and issues has also gone up, and so there's more demand for that. Also, I was a bit surprised with like longer opening hours. So, I'm always thinking, well, I'm very digitally enabled, but having a longer opening hours, but perhaps that's more about like, okay, you might have an online system, which is also very important. People want that as well. But the fact that they can communicate with people out of hours, because people are all, we all work at different times, different zones, different ways. So more flexibility in that. And in the sort of verbatim comments that we received back was really, quite a few people saying, well, we want them to really explain what they do and don't do. So really try to understand. And I totally appreciate that, when people are so excited about, they're putting an offer on the first property and they don't want to hear about all the bad stuff. So it's a difficult, that communication is super important. Excuse me. But we also had a few, and I was quite surprised. It's like, let's treat women equally as men. Can you please talk to me as well as my partner? And also be more proactive. Don't be reactive. Don't blame others. Let's deal with the same person throughout. So I don't want to have to explain over and over again. And also, there's been some feedback is that they weren't very happy about using more of the new build developer recommended conveyances. We didn't see anything about sort of, which was surprised me a bit actually, about using estate agent recommended conveyancers. So, because that sometimes we hear a lot of that about them pushing their in particularly their mortgage services. So, so that's interesting for us to understand. So, and again, you can find all the full results in the report, which you can download. So one thing I was just thinking about, how, and I'm going to finish up quite soon, and hopefully we can have a discussion where I can think about sort of what could be the possible solutions. And I was thinking that this is something that's quite popular on our website, and it's I didn't really know about. I don't think it's been around for that long, but home buyers protection insurance. I'm not saying it's a solution for everyone, but also known as gazumping insurance, and it means that you can claim that buyers can claim out-of-pocket costs, conveyancing, survey, and mortgage costs, and that might help encourage people to actually take out surveys because they know they might get their costs back, and also protects people if they do get gazumped. So maybe feeling a bit more confident, and then hopefully also maybe making sure that they get the right conveyancer, not looking at the cheapest price, thinking if I'm going to have to put an offer on 3 properties and one of them is going to fall through, I'm going to have to sort of, I have to carry up all these costs. And these are all upfront costs for people who, are really strapped for cash at that time because they've got so many out-of-pocket costs when you're buying a property, of course. And so it's something that's quite popular on our site. Awareness is increasing. We get lots of people coming to our site looking for it, but it's timing is so crucial because you need to, of course, buy it before when you start to realize things have gone wrong. So I know that quite a few conveyancers offer it now. Maybe it's part of the package, or mortgage brokers do, and other things. But it is something that might be quite interesting for buyers to help protect them against transactions failing. And I'd love to crack the nut of being able to help with the home sellers as well. So if we can get sellers to also protect them in a way from, being messed about or whatever it is, and some of their out-of-pocket costs. But that is a bit trickier because, of course, they don't really have survey costs and, mortgage arrangement fees and that sort of thing. So I'll leave that with you. I'd love to know your thoughts on this, whether you think this is a good product for home buyers. And my final thoughts are, and then I can look to the comments and see there's quite a bit of chat going on. But through this this research we did is that, I think more education is needed and wanted. The consumers themselves like the process to be explained, but this is not a 5-page letter. This has got to be really easy to understand, easy to engage, and and people learn in different ways. Some people are visual learners, some people like to read websites, some people like to listen to podcasts, whatever it is, and they also like to pay perhaps more independent advice. So we always say that we will say probably a lot of the same things that conveyancers or good builders would say, but sometimes it comes for us as a bit more neutral. So really being explained what the conveyancer will do and don't do, and that will really manage expectations and hopefully increase the satisfaction of understanding what the process is. The survey results, not in our survey results, but just the results about thinking that the conveyancers are actually checking that the property is sound is quite worrying, and it's something I probably will put to the surveyors when I next speak to them, and saying that more needs to be done, and we probably need to do more to educate, because maybe the survey itself is not really fit for purpose in itself, and there's a whole sort of set of issues around that. So proactive communication is an area where we hear consumers saying they like more of, and appreciate that it's not efficient to have a highly qualified conveyancer sitting listening to answering questions all the time, one-to-one or whatever it is. But there's tools out there. I know you're sold, being sold on a daily basis, lots of different interesting tech things, but I'm very interested to know what sort of things that you're thinking of doing to try to sort of try to improve that, because that'd be something where you can really kind of improve your satisfaction, and which will in turn improve your Google reviews and get your repeat business. Reducing delays, this is also, you're being paid at the end of the process. So that's always difficult. And especially if you're no sale, no fee, what is it within the conveyancer's control to reduce delays? Conveyancers themselves say it's the chain instability. So is there something there that the conveyancing community can do? Or is it something that we all need to work together? And how can we work to make the process faster? So we had 38% of those said they want to see a faster process. But I would say, I think now, yes, definitely, because the transaction times are so long. But I always wonder whether it's more of a certain process with set timescales. If we know that we're going to move within 12 weeks or exchange within 8 weeks or whatever it is, having that sort of set time is something to manage, really. And I put it to you that what can we do to help deliver this? And this would help everyone in the property industry, for conveyancers, for consumers, and to get people to move, to encourage people to move to the right sized houses when they're able to, and it's good for them. So will upfront information deliver this? I know you've heard about this, about digitization, digitization, so the flow of information. Reservation agreements was something that, or the Gazelle sort of type agreement. So we campaigned for a few years ago quite heavily on reservation agreements, saying, well, if government isn't going to legislate, and I don't think there will be, who knows, we've got an election looming, so who knows what will happen there. But we campaigned for quite heavily on reservation agreements and saying, well, let's make it simple. Let's have, like a new build agreement. Let's have a sale agreed and £1,000 put in by the seller, £1,000 put in by the buyer. And then if somebody pulls out for different reasons, then they lose the money. And so that just gives a bit more commitment there. So you're not sort of just, using it as a hobby to go and, buy and sell properties or put in offers, and when you have no intention to actually really moving. So I'll leave it there. And I think I've got one more just to say thank you. So, feel free. So I'm Paula Higgins, the HomeOwners Alliance, and, feel free if there's anything that you want from us, come take a look at our website, or if there's any questions, feel free to drop me an email. I'm always happy to answer any questions. So I think it feels a bit, let me just see what I can see, I guess, quite a lot of people. That's great. Okay, everyone can hear me. That's good. Oops, sorry. Just maybe I should work backwards. Okay. Okay, so some of the things I'm just going to take random because I'm just scrolling up and down is a bit odd. A fact sheet. So someone saying sending out a fact sheet with explaining the difference between evaluation and survey, that most clients don't read it. Yes, I know, and I also know that we have all this information on our website, so at least that we know people will Google, will find us in organic Google, but we know also a lot of people come to us when it's too late. So when something's gone awry. So and we've got some of agreement. A balance is needed when liaising with clients, feeling swamped by constant legal letters. Yes. Know your client applies. Yeah, and the complexity of what you're having to work out. Is the insurance going to pay out? So I guess that's probably on the home buyers protection insurance. Well, there's lots of providers. Well, it's not that many providers, but we know on average the insurance that we did in 2022, the average payouts were £900. So it does pay out if you do, but it's got to be very much insurable event. So it's very important to get people to look at it properly, really. So it's usually paying for out of pocket expenses. So actually sort of receipts for surveys and I think it's and conveyancing and valuation. Then it's not if they've changed their mind as well, because we know that buyers can also change their mind. And let's see what else I've got. Does property buyer insurance cover buying at auction? No. No, it doesn't. Would like it to. We have been talking about that, but that's quite a tricky thing. And so we do speak to the insurers and see if there's something more we can do there. But it'd be very expensive. They're going to be very precise about how they're going to. It can't be subjective, shall we say. How many insurance claims have been made? Are they increasing? That's a good point. I know that I don't know how many insurance claims have been made on our site. I do know that it's becoming way more popular. And I think it's more that people are more aware of it. And I think more conveyancers are offering it and mortgage brokers are offering it, and they're probably finding it through the likes of our sites and other sites. So I can get to see, but I think that generally the claim rate is, people have been quite satisfied. Very difficult for conveyancers to comment on structure unless they are trained in it. Yes, completely true, which is why we'd always say, encourage people to get a survey if that's the most appropriate thing. Karen says, delays I hear a lot about, but this is just not within our control. Chains, management packs for flats. Yeah, turnaround time for third-party services. Yes, I know. Yes, I'm very aware of that. And that's where, working together, and that's where the industry and probably through the home buying and selling group, and whether, maybe this is sort of some of this upfront information about packs and things like that is really important. And regulation of the managing agents who may be pulling out these packs for leaseholders. Who holds the money safely for reservation deposit? So I can show you a link. We had a link to, if I can find it, we had a link to our campaign page on that, but it could be within the, you could set up something like a tenancy deposit scheme, so you have something like that. So they're held there, and it happens. Sorry, I can't do two things at once. There's a link to, I think, the reservation agreement on our site. So it would be held in a escrow account, or maybe a separate client account from the estate agent. But you'd also have to have a whole process of how, who's in the right and how the decisions being made on how the money be split between them or whatnot. So there's a whole thing there. But I do wonder if it's something that can be done. And I think the problem with a lot of these solutions we say about upfront information is that it's hard because it's such a fragmented market that, if you had a reservation agreement, the buyer and the seller needs to agree, and it's the estate agent of the buyer and the seller. And that's why we always, I mean, our site, we really encourage people to appoint a conveyancer on day one of sale, and they also find their conveyancer, you know, as soon as they've got a property. So, and that's something where in the last 10 years, our advice has changed. And we do try to give people, sellers particularly, like we do try to say, look, this is the information you're going to have to complete, the TA6 form or there's BAPSI forms. You know, it's best to be honest and do it now, and that sort of thing. So it's, so Karen says, reservation deposit paid 4 years ago, purchased by scrap, believed to insecurity and risk. Okay. Well, I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on reservation grids. Maybe it's a campaign that we should resurrect. New build nightmares, yes. So yeah, leasehold properties and management companies usually cause major delays. Answer inquiries, yes. First port, yeah, we get lots of people coming to us with that, and that's where through the leasehold reform bill, there's really active campaigning to regulate the managing agents. So it's tricky on that. Clients, a good one from Mark. Cannot give them to certainty when they might be able to complete when you're actually very close to exchange completion. Have you got a completion date? Well, I'm afraid the ground stability report suggests a sinkhole may well last next 5 years. But yes, you've got a completion date. Very good. Yes, and that's something that maybe we need to sort of work through some of our guidance to help that. So we're there to try to explain. So, anyways, I think I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you so much for your, and I will take a look at all these comments afterwards, but I hope you found that useful, and I hope you do take a look at the research and do visit our site or get in touch, and keep up the good work, guys, and hopefully see you again this time next year. Thank you.